Welcome to the bold analysis. Nearly 9 months of Kenya Kwanza's reign. Despite of political rants to vanquish Uhuru state, it is very clear that UDA has failed to vanquish the Uhuru state. And then questions are emerging why the president is looking for Uhuru Kenyatta in the wake of latest meetings that were sanctioned by the president to reach out to former president Uhuru Kenyatta. And there were three strategies that were used to vanquish the Uhuru state, but they failed. The first was dislodging Uhuru Kenyatta direct appointees in government. And that's why you will see revoking appointments in state corporations, parastatals, and government-owned companies. And also other people that were whose contracts were extended by the president. That's why the DCI, the IG, NIS team were hounded out of office. That was a bit of a strategy to make sure that Uhuru's loyalists are not in government. And that was the first cadre of people to be pulled out of government in vanquishing Uhuru state. The other strategy was the business chain takeover and mutilation of Uhuru Kenyatta's business empire. Let me tell you, the very first meeting that President William Ruto held on the business front was to walk to offices of Safaricom and met with the leaders in Safaricom and told them to restructure Fuliza, review rates of Fuliza, and he went there telling them that hustlers had told me. That was directly seen as going to mutilate because of Uhuru's stake. And you have also seen the restructure, or rather the development in the oil marketing sector. The Dubai deal was actually just seen as a way to cut deals above board so that they will take over on the oil sector. That has really been tried, but it has failed. And to dismantle, the other thing was to dismantle Azimio Grape. Recently, I was having an informal chat with a banker who told me, because I asked, why is it difficult? Why exactly did government fail to pay employees, and including even KBC, they're yet to be paid? I tried asking that question, and he told me that, Kevin, when the President William Ruto made an announcement that he is not going to borrow local banks at the rate above 16%, the banks declined to give him loans, to give the government loans, even though government loans are most secure. But the president declined, and that is why the salaries delayed, because the banks declined to borrow the government. Now, in the wake of the 213 billion that Raila is talking about, the government has borrowed at 15.84%. That is just 0.16% shy of the 16% that he had mentioned earlier. There is not. So he had to boost. He had to go back and increase that interest rate, borrow at 14.84%. So this is what is happening. And over the last couple of weeks, Ruto's allies are disturbed by reports that he dispatched Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen to meet Uhuru in some dingy space in Dubai. The Dubai meeting between Murkomen and Uhuru Kenyatta is likely linked to a couple of developments that happened later. And after that, you'll see Murkomen while launching the flight to the Kabunde airstrip in Homa Bay, saying that he will be leading a reconciliation efforts between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. So he's been at the center of this. Bipartisan talks collapsed without great agitation from Azimio la Umoja, despite of back and forth letters. Sifuna is saying they used to go for those bipartisan talks meetings, but the government side would fail to show up. And when they show up, they come with uh, um, um, counter requirements to be discussed there. When Azimio, for example, when Azimio said they want the cost of living question and the server question to be addressed, then the government side will come and say that they want to discuss how Raila can exit the political space. So it became a hide and seek game until it collapsed without strong agitation from government. Political observers will also tell you that the kind of silence and the kind of approach that Raila Odinga has taken is a bit different and is a change of strategy that can show you that it's grown cagey. If this budget was to be, discussion was to be in May or was to be in March, people would be in street even as Parliament would be discussing. So this has really shown that William Ruto is looking for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Why it is failed to address, dismantle the Uhuru state, because in this country we've had different transitions. And you know, in our constitution, we don't have a perpetual transition of policies. Even reversal of Uhuru policies was one of the strategies to make sure that, for example, this one on subsidies, both the maize and the food subsidies, not exclusively that it didn't work, but one of the reasons why President did not want to continue with it is because he knew that when government is paying those in the subsidy program, then former President Uhuru Kenyatta would actually benefit, because maybe he had his people inside government by then. But that has failed. But at the end of it, after the whole agitation, the government is going to pay the oil marketers that were owed a lot of billions. So there are three reasons that clearly explain why Ruto is looking for Uhuru Kenyatta. Three reasons. Number one, Raila aggression over the governance issue with William Ruto is something that has a risk, has a potential of, is a career threatening to William Ruto's term. You know, as truth be told, the governance on William Ruto's side is already a thorny issue. And the kind of corruption scandals that are being mentioned is something that is ending, is something that is worrying. Raila Odinga team were taking people to the streets complaining about the cost of living, and there was a very high likelihood that it was also getting the backing of former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And that political aggression, William Ruto was looking for all means to quell that aggression, because it's going to boil up. Things are not good. And while government will want to explain that we are here because of something happening in other countries, but that is not a political narrative that you can hold until to the next general election. So with the kind of aggression going on, hustlers are not getting the answers that they were promised. William Ruto had to get away, and the best way is to quell the pressure. You see, look at Maina Njenga's attempt, there was a political aggression. Look at Matiang'i's attempt, Raila was in the fold. And William Ruto knows very well that Raila is going to thrive in very combative criticism of government. The person that is going to win, because hustlers are going to swing that side, is Raila Odinga. Just today I saw analysts saying that William Ruto's social media page is no longer attracting comments, more than 1,000 comments. But then you can take that challenge, check his latest Facebook posts. You realize that people have gotten bored and are not interacting with the messages in his social media pages. So it has gone down because people have lost the interest. Number two, you could try to attack Uhuru Kenyatta in all sectors, even if you talk about the land question, the tax exemptions, and the telecommunication aspect. But Uhuru is a key player in the banking sector. Was a key player in the banking sector. I don't think he had a lot of stake in the energy, as was highly rumored. I know people used to say Mama Ngina is the largest shareholder. But again, clearly, with the banks, William Ruto knows very well that Uhuru has a very good key to cripple government. You know, let me tell you, the government borrows from local banks, from local financial institutions. Half of what is borrowed, because the capping for local borrowing is around 500,000. Even though the banks are so much, they're more comfortable to borrow government than to borrow Kenyans because of the risk factor. Because of the risk factor, government, the risk factor is low compared to small businesses, individuals. There is a lot of risk in it. So when Uhuru is a key player in the banking sector, I can tell you, he can pull a trigger. And how about if the banks decline to borrow government, like the case that happened? They're going to cripple. So there was no way out of it. You could try to do everything and name calling. You know, who would just sit back and make one call and tell, we are not going to borrow government our money. You know, let's go and serve the others. Just that one trigger, and you don't need to do it for long. So, because government borrows monthly, by the way. In fact, they even say daily. You just say this week or this month you're not going to borrow government. Then that is enough to cripple. So that is one of the reasons why he had to sought after Uhuru Kenyatta. Lastly, Mount Kenya aggression against the government. Rigathi Gachagua is not giving it a spark. And initially, towards the election, it was potential. It was potent to use Uhuru Kenyatta's name, as Uhuru did this, Uhuru did that. But now that you're in government, the mountain is asking for answers. The more you move with Uhuru Kenyatta aggression, they'll start asking you, now, enough of Uhuru Kenyatta, can you tell us your solution? What do you have for us? So because of those three reasons, it is not viable. And that is why I believe that this is a ploy to bring Uhuru Kenyatta on fold. I was just making, someone also made a political observation that as Ruto dispatched Murkomen to meet Uhuru Kenyatta, also Musalia Mudavadi has been in the fold and has been meeting Uhuru Kenyatta, especially in the African soil. They met in Nigeria, they met in Burundi. And clearly, he's also been coming out to call out those who are doing politics that it is the time for service delivery. William Ruto realized that begrudging Uhuru Kenyatta is not going to solve the Kenyan problem. And while it is a political propaganda, but in the fullness of time, it reaches a point, it's flat. No one wants to hear more of it and wants to know what is in it for the UDA government. That's my take.